This hour, President Trump will pitch his tax reform plan in Middletown, Pennsylvania, and we will bring the speech to you live when it happens. But first, to our top story. Developments in the Harvey Weinstein scandal have been fast and furious over the past 24 hours. We've learned that the movie mogul has boarded a flight to Europe for sex rehab as more victims have now come forward. The latest being Cara Delevingne, who claims she was a victim of his unwanted advances. And there's more. New reports about how Weinstein was perhaps protected. First up, NBC News. Here's Ronan Farrow on how the network refused to first report on the story.
Why did you end up reporting this story for The New Yorker and not for NBC News?
Look, you would have to ask NBC and NBC executives about the details of that story. I'm not going to comment on any news organization's story that they, did or didn't run. I will say that over many years, many news organizations have circled this story and faced a great deal of pressure in doing so.
And then there's Hollywood. Did they know about Weinstein's abuses and sit by and do nothing? This video from more than 4 years ago may prove so.
Oh, please. I'm not afraid of anyone in show business. I turned down intercourse with Harvey Weinstein on no less than 3 occasions out of 5.
Congratulations, you 5 ladies no longer have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein.
All right, so Dana, do you think this is perhaps just the tip of the iceberg?
I don't know. I mean, listen, the laughter doesn't sound so funny, now. I'm looking back and I guess knowing what they knew at the time. I do have to say I'm really impressed with Ronan Farrow and how composed he was. I mean, that's not easy to do an interview. At least they did the interview on MSNBC at the parent company. The question being, did they actually stifle the story that Ronan had worked on for quite a while? And they said, no, take it somewhere else. And he takes it to the New Yorker. I thought that was pretty remarkable, that perhaps it is a lot more widespread. And Chris Hayes, who is a host at MSNBC, said, you have to wonder if Hollywood is staring at something that would be as big as the scandal that the Catholic Church went through 15 years ago.
Yeah, and you had a good discussion about that today. The other thing, Dana, just to follow up really quickly, is Seth MacFarlane had said that he had heard about it or knew about it and was making the joke. So that at least there's some suggestion that there was some knowledge and discussion about it, sort of maybe behind the scenes, et cetera, in Hollywood. So where do they go from here?
Well, it's interesting because, a lot of places have gone through this, and you look back and you think, well, was it, if you might have heard about it, but maybe you didn't have anything personal to do with it, so you think, well, that's none of my business. But a lot of these actresses that have come forward, and some of their former boyfriends or current boyfriends who have said that they did try to confront him directly, they didn't take it public, and partly that's because they're in a business together and they want to succeed. But I do wonder if at this point they're realizing that they have a much bigger problem on their hands, because they were laughing about it, excusing it, but you actually might have legal action that will take him for a long time. I think it's very curious, Kimberly. I'm curious what you think about this. Why did Harvey Weinstein have to go overseas? I mean, is there not an opportunity to go to one of these places in America? I've never looked into it, but
I did, and yes, it's very hard.
It's hard to go in America.
No,
thanks for that revealing personal anecdote.
We have to be clear here when we're praising Ronan Farrow for doing what? For bringing up NBC's role in this. So we have to do that with ourselves, correct? I mean, were we all shouting about FNC when that was going on? So I can see why people hide. They call this an open secret, which means it's not a secret.
Right.
That's what drives me crazy. And it is because there's a certain generation of men, perhaps, that see in places of power as things as transactional. People have a word for this. It's such an open secret that it's called the casting couch. So it's not just about Weinstein. It's about everybody. They know that when a young girl is going into someone will always make a joke about the casting couch.
Well, this is kind of what Dana was talking about in terms of the Chris Hayes tweet, which was, okay, is this something that we're going to see, obviously, that's been talked about, the casting couch that was sort of systemic in Hollywood? Will there be other people who are revealed
but it's systemic,
who have engaged in the same practices?
It's not. It's old school. It's wherever there's high-powered executives, where there are directors, there are producers, there are politicians, you are going to see somebody violating this. A lot of people get into certain businesses precisely because of this. Some guy wants to get in the movies because he wants to get laid.
Okay.
What? I mean, I'm just being honest.
to Greg's point, in all industries, men continue to abuse their power, and it's starting to slow down as light's been exposed to this. Harvey looks like a serial sexual predator, and it was an open secret, and it's so cliche when you think about it, that a ugly, fat, old Hollywood producer dangles the dream of success in front of a young starlet on a casting couch. The stereotype is just so sick. But
they don't have to be
itself,
physically attractive or not. The point is it happens.
But either way, the cliche is true if you look at them. Now, if you look at the industry of Hollywood, there's so limited amount of roles that these women are pursuing. And there's only a few big production houses in Hollywood. So you have a few rich, powerful men like Weinstein who control and are the gatekeepers for very hotly contested roles. So you have women coming across from Europe, from Asia, from all over the country to compete and try to land their dream job. And he preys on their dreams, and he exploits their dreams for sexual gratification. Now, it's not the victim's fault for not coming forward, but like you said, it was so open that everybody knew about it, and instead of doing something about it, they put their own self-preservation and their own success and their own access above doing the right thing. So Hollywood's so self-congratulatory and self-righteous. You see them at the award shows, patting themselves on the back. They decide that they're the arbiters of what's right, what's appropriate in this country. And they're quick to point the finger when any of their enemies cross the moral lines that they've designated. But the fact that this went on for so long and they did nothing completely undercuts their credibility when they champion the causes that they claim to want to champion.
Okay, just, let's touch upon the most important aspect of this, which is the victims. There's many reasons why people don't come forward. They don't feel that they have economic power or a voice that will be heard. Many of them want to make sure that they can try to get a chance in the industry, and it's, very uncomfortable. Some people said they didn't want to come forward out of not to embarrass his family or wife or children, that type of thing, or they feel just, humiliated and self-shame at that. I mean, I dealt with that a lot with sexual assault, victims, people who were raped, sex abuse crimes, where they don't want to come forward because of the stigma.
I think there's so much changing in the country with regard to the relationships between men and women, but in the workplace, exactly what you say is at play, Kimberly, because I think lots of women saw this as an opportunity to get ahead. So we know about the women who've come forward and said, Harvey Weinstein behaved inappropriately. What's not said oftentimes is the women who may have had some relationship and it might have advanced their career. I even read in the paper today, one woman had his initials tattooed on her because, he made her career. But now, all of a sudden, I think people feel like, Harvey Weinstein is, as Jesse said, a clear sexual predator. And, the question becomes not just Hollywood, but as we're seeing in the papers today, what about the politicians who were taking Harvey Weinstein's money from the Clintons to the Obamas? Why were those people silent? And again, you come back to the idea that, he had power, he had money, and men like sex, and they want sex with younger women, and here he had the opportunity to act in a way that said, it's my prerogative. It comes with the power. On Wall Street, this is a problem. You read about people in Washington, congressmen having affairs and saying to the mistress, let's have an abortion, even though he says that he is, pro-life. And then you hear about things, like John F. Kennedy and all the women that were around that, or you hear about, it's to me, a lot of what's going on the college campuses where the colleges don't know how to deal when a young woman says that the guy behaved inappropriately.
But this is different in the sense that it is normalized. When you have a phrase called the casting couch and everybody assumes and jokes about it, that means it is something that has become acceptable to a point where, well, did he hit on you? Yeah, oh, it was disgusting. But I didn't tell anybody because everybody already knows that Harvey does that, so I didn't want to tell anybody. It grossed me out. But, everybody knows. They joke about it on awards shows. So it became... The hypocrisy that Jesse brings up is so true. This is an industry that lectures us on morality, on all kinds of morality, whether it's about sexuality or gender or climate change. But in this case, they are accepting something that is immoral because it is part of doing business.
But it's not just them now.
Yeah.
I think it's been them forever.
No, I agree.
I just think this is the way business was done among powerful men at a different time and a different generation. And at the moment, you see more women in the workforce, more women who are educated, and they have sufficient political leverage, Greg, to finally call people out. Now, the question to me is, so why didn't NBC approve Ronan Farrow's story? Why did the New Yorker approve it, you know? Or why didn't, as I understand it, several years ago, there was the argument the New York Times had some of this. They say they didn't, withhold the story, but boy, it sure looks terrible.
Well, NBC then, pushed back just to say their side of it. They said, well, this is a different story than what was presented to us. So that's an interesting factual analysis to see what did he proffer and put forward and who, in fact, made the call to not, take that story and go with it to the point that it was buried and kept like this, but there was also intimidation that he did to people when they tried to cross him or that they weren't, he wasn't he felt that they were trying to do something against him. Like Ronan said, he had that problem with him personally. But I just want to touch on something, too, because when you think about Roman Polanski, and now you see he's going to sex rehab in Europe. And as a prosecutor, I'm just telling you, the first thing I'm thinking of, wow, this guy just skipped town. Right. Where did he go in Europe? Is he going to be able to be brought back? Because I even contacted the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office where I used to work. And in terms of the sexual assault unit, and, you're looking at, yes, misdemeanor battery even is 3 years. Felony, if there's rape and the victim's adult at a time, there's a 6-year statute of limitations, or aggravated rape, forcible rape of more than 2 victims. That sentence can be 15 to life. We don't know all the facts here of what transpired, but it certainly warrants a full and thorough criminal investigation for assaultive sexual conduct and what has been so far alleged in terms of the media. And so if you're the LADA's office or whether stuff took place in New York, they have to be checking into that.
Could they have prevented him from leaving the country?
Well, if they had an open case and were aware and were able to go, or if they were convening a grand jury or something of that nature, you can try to prevent, somebody from leaving and putting out a warrant, but they might not have been there at this point. But when you see an investigation like this, I've had cases where a case was in front of a grand jury and an indictment was just about to be returned in the dog mauling case, and my 2 defendants fled, and there was a high-speed chase and the whole deal. So, you've got to be on top of this stuff. But I think because this just broke, now they're getting into, on top of the investigation. And that's why this is a very important and compelling news story from so many angles.
My guess is sex rehab is probably going to be a chateau in France, and you're not going to see it for a while.
And also, can I say, I never knew what the phrase casting couch meant until this show.
Are you kidding?
Come on. No, I know. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea.
I learned that was in sitcoms. They were talking.
Dana wasn't allowed to watch those sitcoms.
Oh, my goodness.